Good afternoon, ladies, and thank you for joining us in Far Above Rubies today. I'm so glad that each of you are here. Today's miracle that we are focusing on is the miracle of light. And your reading challenge, I'm hoping you will go and read Exodus chapters 7 through 10, but I'm going to be focusing on Exodus chapter 10, verses 21 through 23. And I will throw a fair amount of scripture at you today, so you may need to pause the video, write some things down, and come back to it, okay? The place that we find ourselves in this passage is the 10 plagues that are falling on the land of Egypt. We heard on the weekend how Moses was called to go to Pharaoh and get the children of Israel delivered out of 400 years of slavery and bondage. And it's a difficult task. God is using Pharaoh to show his hand and his might and his power in the land of Egypt. And in this particular passage, we're looking at the plague of darkness that has fallen on Egypt. This passage says that Moses lifted up his hands towards heaven, and a darkness that could be felt, it makes me think of heaviness. A darkness that could be felt fell on the land of Egypt, so much so that the Egyptians could not see the person sitting next to them. And it says they neither moved from their place for 3 days. They didn't move for 3 days because of this heavy, tangible darkness. But it tells us that there was a miracle of light in the middle of this darkness, that while the whole land of Egypt was covered in darkness that could be felt, that the children of God had light in their dwellings. They had light in their dwellings. Now, I live in a place called Sin City. I live in Las Vegas, and when you drive down the highway, there are billboards advertising every imaginable sin that you can think of. This is a place of darkness, and I would imagine that your town or your city is not all that unlike where I live. We might be a little more blatant about advertising such sins, but you live in a world of darkness just like I do. But, we have inside of us a miracle of light. Just as the Egyptians were paralyzed by their darkness, they didn't move because their darkness was so tangible. It was so thick. They could not see their hands in front of their face. There is a world around us, ladies, that is crippled by the darkness that they live in. But have you ever noticed that a child of God, a spirit-filled woman, can stand at a funeral of a loved one and worship God? Have you ever noticed that women of God, women who live for God and are filled with His Spirit, can worship Him, can honor Him, can live for Him, can find joy in Him, no matter the darkest of circumstances they are going through? That is because the miracle of light that is within us. It's not that we don't go through the darkness. It's not that we don't go through grief and loss and anger and fear and doubt. It's that we have a miracle of light inside of us during those times. John chapter 8, verse 12, Jesus tells us, I am the light of the world. In 1 John chapter 1, verses 5 through 9, it's a terrific passage. Go and read it. It tells us that God is light. And so if you are filled with the Spirit of God, you have the miracle of light within you. Do you think that the Egyptians that maybe bordered the encampment of the Israelites, do you think any of them could see light inside the Israelites' house? Do you think any of them who couldn't see their hand in front of their face inside of their home, do you think that they could spy a light coming from the Israelites' homes? That's just my imagination and how it works. We are filled with God's Spirit. We have the miracle of light within us. Matthew chapter 5, verses 14 through 16 says, You are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hid. Neither does a man light a candle and hide it under a bushel, but he instead sets it on a candlestick, and it gives light to all the house. Let your light so shine before men. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father that is in heaven. There are women around you living in darkness, and you have a miracle of light. Let your light so shine. Let your light so shine. Let your light pierce their darkness. Let them see your good works. Let them see the Spirit of God living inside of you. Let them see that when you go through a dark valley, that you're still hanging on to your miracle of light. Let them see your spirit. Let them see his spirit. Let them see your good works and glorify your Father that is in heaven. Go and read Exodus hopefully chapters 7 through 10. You'll want to have those for tomorrow. I promise you, we're going to look at the conclusion of the story tomorrow, and you do not want to miss tomorrow's devotional. I focused today on Exodus chapters 10, verses 21 through 23. And if no one has told you lately, you are loved and you are cherished. You are valuable. You possess the miracle of light if you are filled with God's Spirit. You have worth, my friend, and that worth is far above rubies. Like I said, do not miss tomorrow. You'll want to be here for that. I love you. God bless you. I'll see you then.